All right. Here we go.
Oh, it's
So-
being recorded. Okay. So I can say got it.
All right. Welcome everybody to this month's Wine and Culture Chat. This month will be a little bit less of a chat than it will be the honorary, the honor of us having this legend known as Miss Iris Rideau grace us with her presence and, you know, really going through her amazing book, which is called From White to Black. It's a memoir. She is going to read a little bit of it for us, and then you will have the option of purchasing the book. We're going to put the link to Amazon in the chat for you to buy if you want to support Iris and all of her work. And I don't think you need any more introduction, Iris. I will leave the floor to you and go mind my non-authoring business.
Well, thank you so much, Tahira, and your staff for making this happen today. I've been excited about it and looking forward to it for a long time, and now it's here. So thank you again. Love joining in on our Wine and Culture Fest. So with that, let me get started. What I'd like to do is just kind of give you a quick overview of what the book is about. It's basically about my life. And then I'll read a little bit from the book for you and tell you about how my life started in the Deep South during the days of Jim Crow and moving forward to finally owning a winery in wine country. So, any questions before we start?
I just also want to jump in really quick in case somebody didn't see the chat. We're also giving away a signed copy of the book at the end of this. So stay tuned. We'll give you more details on that after Iris is.
Right. And then the rest of the guests can purchase it on Amazon, which will be the easiest way, quickest way for them to get it to their guests. They can use it for Christmas presents or for their own collection of books, their library. And so anyway, that's out of the way. Let me just start by saying that you know, my life evolved, as I mentioned, from the days of Jim Crow, ultimately to owning a winery and becoming the first Black woman to own a winery in the country. And again, I thank you, Tahira, for sending for me to Atlanta to be acknowledged as the first Black woman to own a winery. And then that I got the honor of now being the trailblazer. I never thought I would enjoy having that title, but I guess I'm old enough to accept it now. So anyway, basically, I spent my adult years in Los Angeles after leaving New Orleans. I had 2 successful businesses there. I was in the insurance business and the securities business and very much involved in politics with Tom Bradley, establishing affirmative action. And I'm telling you, I'm having a really hard time just off the cuff with the other party trying to eliminate affirmative action that I'm personally affected by, identify with, and discouraged about their behavior. But it's not to say that they're going to win because we just took control of the Senate. So yes. Anyway, away from politics. So let me just begin by maybe reading something from the book so people can get an idea of how my life began. And I'm going to start with I'm going to start with the author's notes because I don't know if you guys can see this, but the book is filled with pictures so that they can kind of keep up with the history of my life. Can you see this at all when I turn it this way? No, doesn't work, huh? Doesn't work. Okay, never mind. You'll see it in the book. it's a map of my vineyard, which I started with 13 acres, planted all Gironde varietals from Beaucastel, France, which was pretty unusual because Tablas Creek up in Paso Robles had just started a nursery, and there it goes. And fortunately for me, the vines were ready. They had been imported from the south of France, as I said. And after being quarantined for 3 years, they were ready to be planted right at the time when I was ready to plant a vineyard. So I felt really blessed. And it was another sign for me to tell me I was going in the right direction, as terrified as I was. And I'm sure you guys understand that being in the business. It's like one step in front of the other and just hold your breath and look for the signs. So anyway, this starts, the author's notes starts in 2010. I found myself standing on the highest point of a hill located in the heart of the San Ynez Valley in the central coast of California, not far from Santa Barbara. I proudly gazed up at the endless sun-drenched sky above me, and then out at the perfectly manicured grapevines below. I was looking at a dazzlingly beautiful vineyard. It was mine, Rideau Vineyard. At that moment, I felt an overwhelming sense of serenity and accomplishment. I pondered how a single Creole woman of African ancestry could propel herself headlong into a world historically the exclusive purview of wealthy white men. The answer was as clear then as ever before. My whole life has been about defying the odds and succeeding, and this newest challenge would become my ultimate act of defiance. Creating this vineyard was a grand but insane an idea. However, it was not any more insane than the other business ventures I created that propelled me earlier in life. If I failed, I could lose everything. I was convinced, however, that I would love this journey as much as I had loved my other adventures. It turned out I was right. It became the most passionate chapter of my life, without a doubt. I had no regrets, only love. And as a matter of fact, it became my lover. It was my everything. It was my life. And with that came the recognition as the first Black woman winery owner in the United States of America. Let's begin at the beginning so you can fully appreciate how I got here. Maybe even pour yourself a glass of wine, preferably a glass of Rideau. So can we have anybody have a wine in the glass that we can toast? Anybody? Should have gotten ready for this. I always have my glass. Anyway, to all of you, to life. Now I'm going to go on to something a little more serious. That's why I wanted to lead with this. And it's a difficult part of my life, but it's one that drove me to where I am. It took me to places where I never dreamed I would go. And I was convinced that I would overcome all of the obstacles that I faced in life as a woman of color. It begins summer 1946. I was in the Grand New Orleans station, nervously gripping my mother's hand. Somewhere in the distance, a loud train whistle blew. Woo, 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 woo. Next to us stood an elegant and stunningly beautiful older woman with skin as white as the first winter snow, and whose long hair, black hair, was carefully braided and wrapped around her head like an Afghan turban, sorry. This woman was my maternal grandmother, Mère. Mother in French is what we called her. And she was taking me, her 10-year-old, and very light-skinned granddaughter on the enormous Southern Pacific Railroad train. The SB, as it was known, was tied to one of the most important events of American history, the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad. I didn't know that at the time, and frankly, I wouldn't have cared. I just cared that Mare was taking me on this colossal, beautiful train, and we were going to travel to this exclusive, white-only, first-class train car. I could barely contain my excitement. What I didn't know was that the small percentage of Negro blood running through Mare's veins, as well as mine, could have relegated us to travel in the designated colored or Negro car. But my grandmother was having none of that. As far as she was concerned, we were white and would travel first class all the way. As the train approached the station, the building began to shake, and then a roar came from underground, so loud I had to cover my ears. Mother's eyes filled with tears as she gripped my hand so tightly I thought it would come off. I struggled with the sadness of leaving her and the excitement of going to California to see my father. My heart told me, however, that this trip was something I needed to do. I had to do, and it would become my life. Woo woo, woo woo. I looked up and saw the enormous train approaching the station with a tremendous force, shimmering as bright as sunlight, bounced off its huge silver dome, looking as if the sun itself were going to roll into the station. The closer the train got, the taller it appeared, almost reaching the top of the cavernous building. As it approached, a hissing sound came from under the belly, from what sounded like angry cats fighting as it emerged from under the belly, as the train released steamy water to cool the rails while the brakes applied pressure. As the train slowed down and glided smoothly into a standstill, the cat fight stopped. Then suddenly, all was quiet, and I realized I was looking at the Southern Pacific Railroad train. My tiny body shook with excitement as I shouted, Mare, oh Mare, we're going to Los Angeles. We're going to Los Angeles, California, to see my father. And for a moment, I forgot all about my mother. The door to the train car opened and a tall Pullman porter exited carrying a set of wooden steps that we would use to enter the first class train. His dark blue, navy blue suit was perfectly pressed, and he wore a matching Pullman porter's cap, completing his uniform. As Mother released my aching hand, Mary and I began to walk towards the train. I looked back and glimpsed at a slight look of fear on my mother's face. I ran back and gave her one last kiss, then hurried back to Mare and handed my luggage to the tall porter, who passed it to another porter, who loaded it on board the train. The tall porter turned to us and tipped his cap as a large grin crossed his face. Welcome, ladies, he said as he assisted us onto the train. He was Black. Did he know we were too? As we boarded, Mare was not affected at all by the porter's overindulgence and attentiveness. She acknowledged him politely in English, but with the heaviest of French accents. She made it look so easy. I guess, I thought to myself, this is all we need to do, just act white. Mare and I walked down the first class car's long island, glistening with ceiling lights that bounced off the highly polished mahogany walls. And I'm going to try to get this in front of you because this is a picture, the first picture in the book of Mother and I. Can you see this at all? And my grandmother to the right. So the pictures are throughout the book, as I mentioned. The older ones are in black and white, but the newer ones are in color. And if you guys want me to stop at any point in time, let me know. I've cut out some of this so that it's not too long, okay? But I'm gonna go on for a little longer. Are we okay with this? Yes, okay. You sure? Okay. The windows were draped in red velvet curtain trimmed with fancy red and gold balls that dangled with each movement of the train. As we reached our luxurious compartment, the porter opened the door, revealing a sitting room. He placed our luggage down and opened the inside door to our bedroom containing 2 beds and a pair of lamps. He showed us how to create our own private space by pulling the curtain between our 2 beds. Shortly after settling in, the porter delivered Mayor's Hartman steamer trunk, an imposing piece of sturdy, light brown luggage outfitted with black, dark brown straps and that was secured by 2 latches, sorry. The trunk stood upright on its tall sides, and open, revealing 2 sides with drawers and hanging sections for our dresses. It was like my own closet at home, only better. Mayor and I spent the next 2 days and 2 nights traveling in this fairy tale place, and I felt like the luckiest girl in the world. When the dinner bell chimed, Mayor dressed me in an exquisite yellow dress trimmed with delicate white lace, as she especially made for my trip. And I put on my brand new patent leather Mary Jane shoes that completed my outfit. Mayor combed my hair into my favorite Shirley Temple curls, framing my little face. And I don't know if any of you guys remember Shirley Temple movies, but the first one she made was in 1935. And who was in it? Bojangles, as they danced up and down the spiral staircase. So she became my idol, as I'm sure she was, little girls of my age. Mayor wore one of her new handmade dresses made of soft linen beige and trimmed in delicate black, complementing her snowy white skin and long black hair. I watched with fascination as Mayor carefully braided her hair once again and wrapped it around her hair. Once dressed, we looked like all the other passengers who had boarded the train with us, rich and white. When the dinner bell rang, we made our way to the dining car, which looked like something out of a movie. It was luxurious, car filled with tables, with fine china, glistening silverware on top of pure white linen tablecloths and matching napkins. Each table had a silver bud vase and a single red rose, something I will never, ever forget. All the passengers were impeccably dressed for dinner. Mayor and I fit right in. Our waiter, a tall black man, approached our table, and I wondered again if he knew that we too were Black. I recalled him paying more attention to Mayor and me than other passengers. I noticed all the other Black porters and waiters tipped their caps to us a little more than usual, all with friendly, exaggerated smiles that, given any minute, could have turned into a quiet snicker. I'm going to skip now to the next scene. I traveled to Los Angeles when the train arrived in Los Angeles. My father greeted me And I stayed at his ranch in Corona for the summer. But when the summer was over, had to come back home. But my grandmother, however, decided she had no more to do with the South and went as far as San Francisco and stayed. I had to come back to New Orleans, however, with my mother's girlfriend. My mother made the plans. My mother loved Black people. She only had Black friends. And I make it, I'm making this a point only because we lived in New Orleans as Creoles, mixed, and we traveled throughout the city as white whenever we could pass, just to avoid the harsh segregation of Jim Crow. So Joan and I boarded the plane back to New Orleans. She was beautiful, black curls hanging down her shoulders, completing her gorgeous caramel brown skin and delicate features. Joan looked young and fresh, almost childlike, but she definitely could not pass for white. As she took my hand, I could feel the trembling moving up her arm. She must have been concerned, knowing what I was about to experience. At the time, I wondered why she was so nervous. I walked excitedly towards the Southern Pacific train that eased into the station, much as it did in New Orleans. When the train came to a complete stop, it was time to board. The doors of the car opened. A porter emerged carrying similar set of wooden steps, but he didn't help us up the stairs, take our luggage, or show us to our compartment this time. There was no compartment. Instead, I found myself standing inside of a dingy gray car, so filthy I could feel the dirt settling on my skin. Several overhead lights were missing, making the dirty train feel even darker and scarier. The sickening stench that came from the car's entrance got worse as we stumbled forward, carrying our own luggage. The smell reeked of a mixture of urine and rotten chicken, so vile that I thought I was going to throw up. From the looks of it, this train had not been cleaned since its first days on the rail. Empty potato chip bags, candy wrappers, dirty napkins were strewn throughout the car. It was disgusting. Suddenly I began to cry. Joan put our luggage down at the first seat we came to and gently took my arm. "Baby," she said, "let's just sit down here for a minute." When I did, the seat cushion scratched the tender young skin in the back of my legs. The seats were upholstered in a grimy, stained, dark green fabric that was stiff with dirt. The backs of the seats sat straight up and wouldn't recline into a comfortable position. Other seats were wooden and looked stiffer and more uncomfortable. To make things worse, we were squeezed between those uncomfortable seats and the luggage belonging to all the white passengers in the cars behind us, behind the Negro car where I found myself. "Where are our beds? And where are we going to sleep?" I asked Joan, tears streaming down my face. "Where are we going to eat? Where is the dining car? I want to go to the dining car." I then began to lose control, getting very upset, not knowing what to say. She didn't answer. I asked again, "Where is the dining car?" looking for some way out of this nightmare. She looked down at the shock on my face and said, "I'm sorry, baby, but there is no dining car on this train." I will always remember her for that because she saved me that day. She didn't tell me we couldn't go to a dining car. She said there was none. Where are we going to eat then? Right here, baby, she said. I have delicious fried chicken and potato salad in this bag for us. For the whole trip? I asked incredulously. Yes, she said. Don't worry, sweetheart. It'll last us until we get home. I looked out the window thinking maybe I could escape into the endless magical landscape still lingering in my mind from my first trip. But all I saw was harsh gray landscapes. Exhausted from crying, I laid my head on Joan's lap and cried myself to sleep. The following day, the train smelled even worse. When I told Joan I needed to go to the bathroom, she reached under her seat and offered me some tissues from her bag. I looked at them hesitantly, but then took them without saying a word. At that point, I had a pretty damn good idea of what was in store for me. I'm skipping again, but I do have to mention this, very important. As I reflect upon these experiences, I wonder if that tall porter on the train trip to Los Angeles knew my grandmother and I were Creole of African ancestry and were passing for white, or Pasa Blanc, as the saying goes. We always knew our own, so maybe he did. However, I was too excited about the trip to even worry about it. Now, this is important, and I'm going to finish after this, but it's the rules. And I wanted to recite some of this, the laws. I soon understood that the southern states were living under the Jim Crow law of 1877 that legally separated whites from Negroes or persons of color. The law enforced racial segregation in the South. It lasted until the civil rights movement of the 50s and 60s, led by Dr. King. Segregation extended to schools, libraries, all forms of transportation, parks, beaches, cemeteries, theaters, and all public facilities. Speaking of libraries, I never saw the inside of one until I came to California at the age of 12. The Louisiana Separate Car Act went on to say, that was passed in 1890, was in order to promote the comfort, check this out, quote, the comfort of passengers. The law must have been written for the comfort of white folks only. The act stipulated that railroads provide separate but equal accommodations for whites and colored races on trains running in the States. Thus, those trains had one car designated for persons of color, meaning any percentage of Negro ancestry. To add insult to injury, the train was located, right behind the engine, where not only was it noisier and smellier, but in the event of a collision, the Negro car would take the full impact, thus saving the lives of the white passengers riding behind us. With that, I'm going to skip all the way down. There's a lot more to this, and I hope you guys enjoy reading it. It's a hard thing to write, but it's something that we never read about because it was never in our history books. I was determined to live in California, however, where I would live the kind of life I had come to know, living on that ranch in my father's ranch in Corona. But it was a life I was born to live, and I would feel equal to people of all colors and races. Skipping more. That motivation stayed with me throughout my life and drove me to places I could never have imagined. Bob Marley wrote once, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. And so I did. So with that, I'm going to take a breath. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it wasn't too long.
Thank you, Iris. That was beautiful. Can you give Iris a silent?
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you.
sharing that with us. I think it's really revealing, and I know that this is like such a gem for people our age to be able to get this kind of insight one-on-one firsthand from, you know, your generation, and we won't have that for much longer. You know, when we become the next older generation, we'll be telling these stories, and they're going to be looking at us like, you know, with the big eyes. So
I
this
know.
is really amazing. I
Thank
wanted
you.
to let Natasha open it up for questions. If you had any, she'll filter through. You can also drop them in the chat if you like. Oh, you're emotional?
Yeah.
Like Carl Thomas? You know what that is? I'm emotional. You know Carl Thomas?
Well,
It's
the
really
truth is
beautiful.
not easy to take, you know, and it's
Yeah.
something, like I said, it's not written in our books. And unfortunately, it's something that we have to tell our children some sort. We don't want to drag them back to this, but they have to know where they came from and how it all started. And we can't solve the problem that we have today unless we know how it started. That's
And the
my
beautiful thing is you telling us the truth, we get to pass that along as well to our
Yeah.
children and those kinds of things. And so it's revolutionary. So again, thank you.
Yeah.
Did anybody have any questions?
I actually had a question kind of to start off. Thank you again for telling your story. I totally agree that, you know, these kinds of narratives are extremely important to pass down in our community. And one of the things that I thought about as you were reading, a lot of times passing is sometimes glamorized.
Yes.
So what I wanted to know from you is, do you think that now looking back, how much of it, of the magnitude of what was happening at that time, do you think that you realized doing that at such a young age? Do you think that you really understood the magnitude of what was happening?
I didn't understand it at all. But I did know when I went out with my Black cousin, who was my first cousin, who lived next door to me, my best friend, I encountered all of the harsh oppressions that was imposed on Black people. So I did live between two worlds. But as a child, it was difficult because we couldn't speak about being mixed. We couldn't talk about it. We were known to be clannish. That was out of necessity. As I looked, I didn't understand it, like I said, as a child. But as an adult, I came to realize that we were trying to find better jobs, better education for our children, a better way of life, a better neighborhood to live in, none of which I had, by the way. My white skin did not save me from the segregation of the South. It was only that when I went out with my grandmother, who was determined to not allow the oppression of slavery. And I call it slavery because I felt like it was one step away from slavery, what we encountered. I mean, as a child, one of the things that stays with me to this day, we were forced to step off the sidewalk when white people came by, to kneel, sometimes, most times in the mud because it rained in New Orleans all the time. We were forced to put our head down. We couldn't even look at them. Our eyes could not even touch them. We were spat upon. And so those things affected me, yes, and stayed with me. And nobody, but nobody should have to endure that type of harshness and debilitating, I'm emotional. way of life, because it does leave something with you that stays with you forever. But it also drove me. I have to say that. I mean, all of the negative experiences I had, by the age of 10, I knew that I could not stay in the South. I had to leave. I had to come to California, and I had to live in California. I was not, because it was taking my dignity. I could feel it. I could feel feeling less than a white person at that point in time. And I knew better because I had experienced some of it, some of the luxuries that were afforded white people. So I have to also give myself credit for turning those negative situations into positive situations. And I always say, you know, it could either take you up or it can take you down. It's you determine your own fate and what you're going to do with those hardships. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely, yes.
Anybody else? It's not easy, huh? But you know, we're here and we've come a long way. We've come a long, long way. We still have a long way to go. And we have to still fight for our rights as women, especially as women today. We have to. Nobody, no politician, no man has the right to tell us what to do with our own bodies. And so that's my next cause that I'm going to pick up and fight for. I mean, you know, it depends. Everything else is dependent on it as well. Our voting rights, rights for gays and lesbians, and you know, everybody's rights, other than people that are not of color. So the fight just begins. It started when was that? Tuesday? When we voted?
Mm-hmm.
And we're going in the right direction.
Yes. We live in Georgia, and so you already know what's happening here.
Betrayed again, treacherous.
How is it? How is it? How does it feel there?
Hopeless sometimes.
Yeah, I would say for me, especially having a younger daughter, I feel like I don't feel safe. Like after that election, I didn't feel safe because you don't know who's actually trying to destroy you, right? Because they're in your face, they're pretending, and who knows what else they're doing to try to destroy you, you know, within their power. And it just sucks because they're treacherous. That's all I can say. They are treacherous.
I know. Does it feel like you're getting stronger as a group of Black people, people of color? Do you feel like you're uniting more?
In Georgia or worldwide?
Yeah, in Georgia. Do you feel like between the two candidates, do you feel like you've got a stronger vote?
Oh no. I mean, the fact that Herschel Walker, the fact that this is a runoff tells you everything you need to know. He's legitimately not suited, but they would rather have, it's just, it's undescribable.
Yeah.
Herschel Walker, I mean, can you imagine how disgusting that is to have him as a senator? I can't even imagine that it's going to happen. I don't know, maybe I'm just being naive.
But that's what's so scary, is that it's completely possible. It's
possible.
Completely in the realm of possibility. And that's what makes it so scary.
Yeah.
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 I'll be joining you in California soon.
I heard that. Well, I'm going somewhere else. Although now I don't have to say that because at least we gained control of the Senate. So we've got to fight. But had we lost the Senate and the House, I was going to another country somewhere.
Yeah.
Me too.
Not gonna do that again. So anyway, if there are no more questions.
Well, before we leave, we're going to do a quick trivia contest for the book.
Oh, good.
The first person to remember what her grandmother's name, what did she call her grandmother?
Oh.
You can drop it in the chat. First person in the chat. Jeanette. Congratulations.
You got somebody already?
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Congratulations to you. So send me your information so that I can sign the book to you personally, and I will send it off to you. So best way to reach me, I guess, is by email.
Yeah, we'll handle it. Let's Tasha reach out, and then we'll get that sorted. Also, let's send Nicole a copy too, since there were only 2 people who answered. We'll buy her a copy.
Okay.
Nicole?
You can give mine to someone else because I already have 2.
What was that again? I'm sorry, I missed that. What happened?
Who gave
Only
you
one
2?
person? You only got one person to
I bought
answer?
them.
Is that what happened?
Oh, you have a mare. Oh, Kyle, that's so cute.
Oh.
Who's
We
that?
pronounce it Meme.
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 Oh, Meme. We
Very
pronounce it Mea.
We pronounce
And
it
then
man.
it's the same. Mother, M-E-R-E. It's Meme. I like Meme.
Okay.
Okay,
She's
thank you
assigned
so
copy.
very,
Okay.
very much for this opportunity.
Oh, we have a quick question about how someone may obtain a signed copy in the future.
Well, that's a tough one. We've gone over this a little bit. I guess the best place to start is having them email me.
Okay.
Mhm. Okay. And then we'll figure it out from there.
Okay.
So could we, is it easier to just pipeline straight to Iris? Just drop Iris's email in the chat
Oh,
for
good
anybody
idea.
who wants to get in touch with her.
Do you need me to say it? Spell it out now? Or are you
No,
going
we
to?
can copy and paste it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna copy paste it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Anything else?
No, we know you need to go, Iris. Thank you so much for again joining us and sharing your stories and your energy and your love as always. You look beautiful. It's amazing to see you, and I hope you have a great dinner.
Thank you so much, honey. Thank you for understanding. I need to rush.
Yeah.
But it's wonderful. I'm having wonderful days. Thank you for getting that started. Again, I give you credit for all of that. And the Hughes Society. And hopefully next year I'll be able to get back to Atlanta.
Yes.
Well, depends.
Hope to see you.
Thank you so
It
much.
depends. If we win, I'll be there.
And I'll be in Cali.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Love you all.
Thank
Bye.
you.
We're going to give you guys, I'm going to stop the recording. We're going to give you guys a second to get the email address if you need to.